Subsection 5. The council shall have an official seal, which shall be judicially noticed and shall be authenticated by the signature of the secretary. And any document purporting to be sealed with the said seal, so authenticated, shall be receivable in evidence of the particulars so stated in that document. Subsection 6. Until the council obtains a seal in accordance with the provisions of subsection 5, a rubber stamp bearing the corporate name of the council and authenticated as aforesaid may be used instead of such seal. So what I've read out so far is to establish for everyone who is listening that this is written into the laws of Antigua and Barbuda. The council is set up, and you have heard the functions of the Barbuda Council. And notice too the use of the word shall, not may or may be. Shall, and shall in law has a specific purpose and power. It's not if you think you have to do it or not. Shall, okay? Now I'm going to move on to section 4, which tells you how the council is composed, how it came into being, and so on. So section 4, subsection 1. The council shall consist of the following persons. That is to say, A, the member of the House of Representatives for the constituency of Barbuda. B, a member of the Senate who possesses the qualifications specified in subsection 1 of section 6. And C, 9 elected members. So you have 2 members who are members of the Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda. The Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda consists of 2 houses. You have the lower house of Parliament and the upper house of Parliament. That is the legislature. That is the body that makes laws. So the lower house is the House of Representatives, which consists of 17 members. One of those members is the member for Barbuda, the constituency of Barbuda. The upper house of Parliament now is the Senate, and we also have 1 member which is in the Senate. So in the Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda, there are 2 representatives from Barbuda, 1 elected for the constituency of Barbuda, and 1 selected as a senator. Okay? So that's the basic setup. Now let me move on to subsection 2 of section 4. When the council first meets after this act come into force, and in January of every year before it proceeds to the dispatch of any other business, it shall elect 2 members to be chairman and deputy chairman respectively. Let me read that over again, and I'll give you some explanation. Now remember, this is what happened in 1976. So this subsection speaks to that. When the council first meets after this act come into force, and in January of every year since 1976, before it proceeds to the dispatch of any other business, it shall elect 2 members to be the chairman and deputy chairman, respectively, of the council. So that is what's going to happen this January. Okay, so before the 31st of January, in the month of January, we have to carry out what is mandated in subsection 2 of the law. So I continue. So we said the first order of business is to elect 2 members, the chairman and deputy chairman, respectively, provided that in any year where an election is held pursuant to section 14 of this act, the election of a chairman and deputy chairman shall take place after the first meeting after that election. Remember last year we had a general election, and that general election came in March, I think it was?
Yes.
Now you notice in January last year we could not, because according to this law, if it's an election year, you have to wait until after the election. Council election comes in March, so you have to wait till after the election, the results of the election, and then you reconstitute council. So every 2 years, which is when we get council elections, the council is not reconstituted in January, but in March after the election. So these are pointers that people need to understand. Every 2 years they have council elections, and every January, except in those years when you have an election, you reconstitute council. Okay? Right. It's going so far, so
yes,
good?
You're going good. You're going
All right.
good.
You're understanding well?
I understand
Good.
perfectly.
All right. Now, Section 3. For the purposes of subsection 2, the member referenced in that paragraph, A of subsection 1, in other words, the member of parliament for Barbuda, okay? That member shall preside at the meeting of the council until a chairman and deputy chairman are chosen. Now, let me explain what that means. So we meet to reconstitute. Remember, at that time, no member of council officially has any set position for that fiscal year.
So it's dissolved.
It's not dissolved, but you wouldn't know. When you say dissolve, it means that our members no longer are members.
Okay.
So a dissolution can only come when a member's term is up after 4 years. So that's why we use the term reconstituted. So in other words, the elected members are now assigned their specific duties for that fiscal year. So before, in January, before any other business, that meeting is held, and the person who chairs that meeting is the member of parliament for Barbuda. So that is what this section is saying. Okay? So that member is the member of thing. Now, Section 5, subsection 1. If during the life of the council, the chairman or deputy chairman resigns or dies or is disqualified from being a member of council, the member shall elect a chairman or deputy chairman. The members shall elect a chairman or deputy chairman, as the case may be, to fill the vacancy thus created. Okay? Next section, the deputy chairman of council shall act as the chairman in absence of the chairman from any meeting, and if both chairman and deputy chairman are absent, the members present may elect a temporary chairman from among themselves for the purpose of that meeting. So let me stop there now, because that brings us to where we are today. We're in the month of January, and so based on what you have heard in the law there that I've just read, the first order of business before anything else happens is to elect a deputy and a chairman of Barbuda Council. The person who does that is the member of parliament for Barbuda. So right now we are waiting for the MP, the member of parliament, to name a date, set the agenda, so that we can all sit down and have that purpose carried out. Now, once he has presided over the meeting, he chairs the meeting, and the members elect the chairman and the deputy chairman, then once that chairman is elected, the member of parliament vacates the chairmanship seat in the meeting, because we now have a chairman, and the newly elected chairman now presides over that meeting. And the function of that newly elected chairman is to preside over the election of all the other heads of committees of Barbuda Council. And that's the process that's going to happen shortly in this month of January. Okay? Questions?
That was a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I definitely do have a question. So now, when the chairperson is elected and everybody is assigned their chairs, what necessarily is the role of the chairperson and the chair members for those who don't know in the daily governing of Barbuda?
Okay, that's a good question. And what that will bring out as well is, overall, what is the role of Barbuda Council and members of Barbuda Council? Now, as you would have, I hope, understood from how the law is set up, local government, right? You have these elected members, 9 elected directly, and 2 additional members, 1 elected as the member of parliament and 1 selected as a senator, 11 members. Now, if you would have recalled one of the first things I said, there shall be a council which is a body corporate with a seal. In other words, you have a corporation which is called Barbuda Council. These 11 members now become the board of directors for that corporation called Barbuda Council. Now, if you know the layout and order of corporate entities, you will know that the board of directors, essentially, their role is to set policies, okay? So let me draw the parallel to the system in Antigua. In Antigua, the system is that you have the parliament, which acts as the legislature, upper and lower house, and these members sit and they make laws. There's another layer of governance called the cabinet. And the cabinet's purpose, essentially, is to manage and enforce those laws which are made in the legislature. Okay? Mm-hmm. We have a situation in Antigua and some other countries that the same persons who are making the laws are the same persons who are going to be in charge of seeing those laws made. So in other words, the laws act as a system of policy. Mm-hmm. The parallel with Barbuda Council is that whereas we are not at the level of parliament that actually sets national laws, what we do as members of council is to set those policies on which the administration of local government functions from a day-to-day perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, the council has several specific duties to carry out, and I can read those duties at some point, but just to tell you, mm-hmm. For example, council is responsible, Barbuda Council is responsible for the administration of forestry and agriculture, all right? So under that head of forestry and agriculture, and there's a committee mm-hmm. which falls under agriculture, lands and forestry. The chairman of that committee is responsible for the policies. So whenever you have a general council meeting, those meetings are essentially there to set how each of the various subcommittees will then function. Mm-hmm. Now, after those policies are set, you will notice that each of the subcommittees of Barbuda Council, they will have a head of department, a deputy head of department, and an administrative staff. And they're the ones who actually carry out those responsibilities. So, for example, on the agriculture and land, allocation of lands to Barbudans, managing that process of allocation, agriculture, how you actually manage agriculture in Barbuda, that department carries that out. And they carry out the functions which are laid down by that committee when they meet. Now, one very important layer. We have members sitting as board of directors of council. Mm-hmm. You have the subcommittees that do their business. There's one very crucial middle person between those two, middleman between the two. Who's the middle person? Secretary of Barbuda Council. Remember in one of the subsections they say there shall be a secretary? Mm-hmm. Now that secretary is the chief executive officer. Executive means executing, right? Doing. Mm-hmm. So the administration, governance, local government, members set policy. Policy is then handed down to the administration to execute, mm-hmm. and the person who manages that execution of the policy is Secretary of Barbuda Council. Very important person. That's the key person that runs the administration. So it's like the position held by the permanent secretaries. So you know, in the government system, mm-hmm. you have the ministries. So the Barbuda Council is essentially like a ministry for Barbuda, mm-hmm. that runs Barbuda. Yeah. Like the Ministry of Education runs education. So the Ministry of Barbuda runs Barbuda. So the person who executes that is the secretary. Now in the ministry, who sets policy? The minister who sits in cabinet. Mm-hmm. Now in the Barbuda situation, the persons who set policy are the elected members of council. Mm-hmm. So have I been clear?
Yes.
It's heavy enough, so tell me if
I've been clear. Mm-hmm. I have more of a better grasp
Okay.
of it. And if you are just joining us here at the Barbuda channel, I am currently sitting here with Mr. John Mussington, the chairman of the Barbuda Council, and we are talking about the history of the Barbuda Council and how it is set up. If you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message here at 268-775-1031. That's 268-775-1013. No, 31, my bad.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mussington, what you said really was a mouthful. And a lot of people don't really tend to understand that it's the secretary who manages the day-to-day affairs of the Barbuda Council.
Yes.
And because a lot of people tend to go to counselors, which there's nothing wrong in doing that, but what should normally be the proper chain of command?
For day-to-day activities of the Barbuda Council, the secretary manages that. Okay? And that analogy which you raised in, and the issue you raised in terms of persons going to members of council. Members of council are representatives of the people. It's the electors who vote in election, electing these persons to represent their wishes and so on. So yes, there has to be engagement between people, electors, and members of Barbuda Council. But when it comes to the day-to-day activities in terms of the operations, it's like the civil service, all right? When you go to a particular ministry and a particular department of government, right, and therein you see the same problem in Antigua, people going to minister to get things done, and you see the consequences of that. The ministers then intervene, micromanage, and all sorts of things. The system of governance can potentially break down if that happens. So similarly with Barbuda Council, yes, as members of council, we are there as your representatives, and we do hear things, and matters can be brought to us in specific fields and so on.
Right.
So if, for example, as chairman of Barbuda Council, a matter is brought to me, how do I react? Yes, I listen, but then I say, okay, your matter has to do with a health issue. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to refer your matter to the chairman of the health committee, who is in charge of that particular department, who can then hear what the issue is and then liaise with the head of the department, say, look, this is a problem, could you deal with that and sort that out for me? But to say go down and do the head of department and the health department's job as a member of council, no, that's not how it works. It's like minister going down and doing, no. So that should be the arrangement and how things happen. And more than anything else, it's very important. That's why governance is so important.
Right.
When we sit as policymakers, we should set policies that are so efficient and good in what the intention is, that the system runs properly. Right? And so once you can have the policies in place and you say, Madam Secretary, are things going well? The members of council don't say, Madam Secretary, there's another layer there, chairman of Barbuda Council.
Right.
Okay, and that brings me to another importance of, because we're breaking it down in terms of layers. Members set policy, secretary in charge of the administration to see that policy is executed, who monitors the secretary and see that policy is getting through to do.
The chairman.
There you go. Okay? So that in a nutshell is how the governance system is set up. Okay? Barbudans elect your members. Members sit in their meetings, set policy, and in January of every year, each elected member is assigned a specific area of the organization to manage. Those are the subcommittees. The subcommittees meet and they carry out the general policies that are there. The information is passed on to the head departments in terms of what goes on and who oversees all that. And the administration, the payments and the salaries and the personnel issues and whatnot, secretary. And how does the secretary is assessed in terms of, is everything going well? Because the members know, they know they set a policy and they need to understand, is our policies being carried out? Chairman, what's going on down there? And chairman will then go, secretary, so. So that's the structure.
Right.
Okay?
To me, that sounds very straightforward.
Very straightforward.
I'm glad that we got into the layers because, like I said, there's nothing wrong going to an elected official about a problem because that's what you are there for. We voted you to make sure that the things that need to be done are done, and they're done lawfully, and they're done in such a manner of democracy.
Yes.
And the other question that I have to ask is, how does the council ensure community voices are included in decision making? Because there hasn't been, a lot of council meetings per se for the, past few years, but we're going to, revamp all of that very, very soon. So how does that structure work?
Okay. You could clarify, you said there have not been many council meetings for the past 3 years?
No.
Okay. You meant something else, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So not necessarily, like they haven't been
you mean
constant.
village meetings,
village council meetings, not board of directors, right. But more of village meetings, my bad.
Yes, and you're absolutely right, because in addition to that process of electors holding your representatives accountable by engaging them in terms of certain issues, then the council is obliged to be transparent in terms of letting the general electorate and the community know of what is being done on their behalf in the administration of the island. And that is why in the operations of council, it is stated in the law that all meetings of the Barbuda Council shall be open to the general public. You know why that is so? Because as a Barbudan, and you are a person who has elected a council to administer local government, the island of Barbuda, you have the right to know and understand what is happening. And so whenever these formal meetings, the meetings are happening, then they are open to the public, so you can sit down in there. You cannot participate in terms of having a say and whatnot and so on. But the law says you can sit there and listen in and see governance taking place in terms of decisions and discussions and policies that are happening. Okay? And that is how the spirit of the law is set up, so that there's that layer of transparency built in. Now, in addition to that, in the system of governance, and we are running a democracy. A democracy means that every citizen has the opportunity to participate in the governance of a country, an island, a situation like that, okay? And that responsibility is very important. And in fact, in a democracy, persons have a choice, because they are the ones who are going to select the persons who manage their business. And in selecting the person who manages their business, there's a process. And that process is what we call a political process. All right?
Right.
So the business of selecting your best brains, your best people, to manage your affairs is a very important responsibility. And under a democracy, every single citizen who is at the age of making that choice, and what that age is? 18.
18.
Okay? So you don't have really children participating at that level. So the age from which you can vote, in other words, participate on that level, is age 18. And it's a responsibility, right? Because if your system goes on and you don't have your best people in those positions, where going to happen? If you have people who can manage and people who don't want to be lawful, what's going to happen to your country?
It gets lawless.
Lawlessness, okay? So that's why it's in everybody's interest to make sure that those persons who manage your administration, they're the best you have, best quality. And that's the responsibility of citizens. So in other words, what I'm trying to say and put out there, and I'm going to break it down, Everybody must participate in politics. Politics is not a dirty game, a dirty thing, as they like to say. It's different from partisanship. Partisanship is when people are rooting for their party and that. No. Politics is a very serious business. And it's something that, as a citizen, you are obligated, you have a very serious responsibility to participate in that. Okay?
So could we get a definite definition of what politics is? Because, like you said, I understood what you just said is non-partisan, but for those, a lot of people always have in the back of their head, oh, it's about party, it's about this side versus this side, left versus right. Just give us a definition on politics to the people again.
Okay. So the definition I often use is that politics is the business in a democracy where the people who are part of that democracy selects their best persons to run that democracy. In other words, run the administration, run that system of government that manages your day-to-day activity. In other words, run the corporation, run the business. So it's a system where citizens make that choice to get their best brains and people with best ability to serve them.
I'm glad that you used elect the best officials to be placed into doing the people's work, because what are some of the challenges that the Barbuda Council faced throughout its history, especially pushback from residents? Give a little light on that.
Okay. You want to isolate me to residents? Okay. I know, but I'm going to expand further. Okay. So challenges for Barbuda Council. Okay, and let me start with one very critical challenge that has been faced since 1976. Now, when you read the Local Government Act, and every single Barbudan, you should read that act. It's available online at laws.gov.ag. That's the official website of the government of Antigua and Barbuda, which has all the laws stated there. When you look at that law, right, you realize that the intent for the local government, the Barbuda Council, in administering the island of Barbuda, you realize quickly that it is not the same as the Parliament. Okay? And let me tell you how it's different. The Parliament, House of Representatives, upper and lower, and especially the lower house, where you have the elected members sit. Those members are elected by the people in general elections. Once they are elected, you have parties, and the parties are very crucial because after general election, the Governor General is responsible for appointing the Prime Minister of the country. So first of all, the first stage of the process is that in a 17-seat parliament, the party, the political organization that commands the majority of seats, then the Governor General goes to that political party and determines which member of that political party who has been elected commands the authority from all the other members to become Prime Minister. Okay? So notice the prominence that parties play, and notice how the situation is set up that you have to have parties in the Parliament. So you have a Prime Minister and the party that leads the majority. The other thing that the Governor General has to do is to elect or identify that person from the minority party who will serve as the leader of the opposition. Okay? So right away, you see the partisan division of that House of Representatives along party lines. You have a party that commands the majority, who will have the Prime Minister, and then you have the party that is in the minority, who has a leader of the opposition. So opposition and ruling members. There is no such thing in the Local Government Act. There is no opposition, there is no prime minister, there is no partisan setup. Okay? Now, when in the election for membership in the parliament, of course you will have the parties competing to see, and there's where the electioneering come, and there's where the activity goes on to convince the citizens as to which party and members they should choose to control the governance of the country. How will that be different in our situation? In our situation, what the system is about is to select, in terms of our Barbudans, those members who we want to sit on that corporation called the Barbuda Council, to sit down as board of directors. There's nothing built in there for no leader, opposition, and no party system. And that's the big difference. Now, you asked about challenges. One of the greatest challenges that we have suffered from since 1976 was the introduction of partisan competition and divisiveness.
So that
in the operation. It's not designed in how the law is supposed to function. Now, once you begin to have, obviously you can compete in terms of political organizations in Barbuda to have your thing is. But then we have had a situation where a political organization from Antigua now enter into the mix, and this partisanship has taken over, and that has been the root of a lot of our problems, because the day-to-day functions which council should carry out, there's too much partisan division in there. Right. And that has prevented council from carrying out. When you take a read of that Local Government Act, a lot of the things that council should be doing is not being done because it's weakened because of that. Okay? So that has been a challenge. Now let me deal with the challenge you asked in terms of from persons, the general public, not having an understanding of the functions of Barbuda Council, right? So for example, persons may have the idea that, okay, I voted for you to be a member of council, so now that I'm a member of council, come, right? Okay, and if you do that, and for example, expecting an individual member to go and do something on their behalf, that something may be, okay, get me a job in that such and such a department, or get me some favor in that department. It breaks the system down. And you have to navigate such things wisely, because if you don't, you're going to get a lot of problems. And then at the end of the day, electors may tell you, oh, you don't do what I tell you? When election time, you can look for me? You wait until... That breaks the whole system down. And you have to be very strong to be able to remain focused and understand what the purpose of governance is, and have the kind of integrity and the kind of devotion in terms of how you understand the things supposed to go, to be able to resist that. Okay.
Well, since, that was a down note, let's go on to a little higher
note. It was a down note?
Not necessarily down, but, that is a...
It's an issue, it's a problem.
It is a problem, but you also spoke about a solution to deal with said problem.
Yes.
And it takes strength, and it takes wisdom for people to do the right thing. So since we're talking about challenges, let's talk about achievements that the council has done over the years.
Okay. Before I get to specific, and remind me if I go offline. Okay. You say solutions. One of the most important solutions that we can have is awareness and education. If Barbudans, electors, those persons who are going to be choosing members for the board of directors, elected members, if they understand how the system should work and they want it to work, that knowledge is more than anything else will go a long way in terms of getting things to go the way it has to go. Because the biggest problem, I think, is that many persons may not understand as they ought to how council is supposed to function, the powers that council have, and what needs to be done to achieve that. Okay? So if we can solve that part of it, which is why when I spoke to evangelists in terms of our programs, because we spoke of having a series which will explain what council is about and how it's set up and how it should function. So this is the start of it. So I
Yes,
hope we
this
do,
is the
we do
start.
have further encounters.
Oh yes, we will have
Right?
further encounters. But before we even go
mhm.
any further on achievements per
Mhm.
se, when I was in university, I did a course on mass media law, and it was about the history of mass media law and people who, top people who are in mass media law, whether it be Zoom meetings or they come to the classes, they would speak to us about it. How could that be implemented in the schools here?
Mm-hmm.
Because it has been a little running joke among me and my past classmates, and maybe for other younger generations as well. They're like, what council there for? Council look like it boring. It just look like people just argue and fuss and fight, and I don't want anything to deal with politics. How do you go about that to break that cycle from the younger minds so they are more well aware of it?
Okay. There have been many persons who have stated that we should have civics taught in the school at all levels, primary, even preschool, coming all the way up to secondary school. When it comes to primary school and secondary school, I often respond to persons who make that call that, yes, we do have the mechanisms in place to teach exactly that. And let me tell you why. What are the subjects you work at in primary school? Math, language, science, social studies. That's where it resides. If you look at the typical social studies curriculum in primary school as well as secondary school, it has within it those things that we need to focus on. So for example, it has a section on governance. At the primary level, you have to know about some of the things I spoke about this evening. Governor General, Parliament, ministers, set up, council, structure of governance. That's part of the social studies curriculum. It's the same in the secondary school when you go to write it at the CSEC level. In the tertiary institution, the state college, you do, what's it called? It's communication studies they call it now?
I'm not sure.
I bite my tongue on that. Communication studies. But what that is kind of sociology, which basically covers those things. So in state college, you'll have this part of the course that deals with governance and how things are set up and elections and stuff like that. Now, what we need to do is to focus more and fine-tune some of those issues that you have there. So, for example, what I've said concerning people's responsibility as citizens to participate in politics, these things need to come in there. So the whole question now of mass media, you realize mass media basically is a powerful tool that controls the behavior of citizens.
Very much.
And those who controls mass media, basically they're powerful people. Mass media can
Make or break you.
Make or break you. It can make persons cheer somebody going in and kidnapping certain people, or it can make persons cheer persons going to abduct. And you see the difference?
Yes.
Mass media does that. So it's very important that we have control and be very conscious in terms of utilizing mass media to get those essential messages out. So for our particular situation, we need to get control of getting information about how council is set up, responsibilities of Barbudans as electors, responsibilities of Barbuda council, what do they do? So you will not have a child or a big person say or think that council's role is just to pay salary.
True.
Or to go down there and argue or come there though every 2 years for beg for your vote.
That's also true.
Right? So you're not going to get a change in terms of that mindset unless you utilize consciously in an effort to build awareness, put correct information out there. Because if you don't put correct information out there, I bet you there's someone who's going to put misinformation or incorrect information for other purposes. Okay? So, very good question. And as a young person, are you going to step up to the plate in terms of lobbying for those systems to be in place?
Well, honestly, I haven't gone that far yet.
Oh.
So I have thought about it once, but I went elsewhere and did other things, but now I'm back. That may be a possibility, so
Okay.
maybe we could have a conversation after this.
Okay. So you do recognize that there's a need for that.
It
And-
definitely is a need because, like I said, they are young children who have that in their mindset. And of course, when I was in secondary school, there were times I was like, what's the sense of council?
See? Education.
But it wasn't until I went on my own and looked at the pros, looked at the cons, and then the truth.
Yeah.
So that is something that needs to be implemented, especially in schools. Even if a counselor or the chairman, as yourself, could go into the schools and speak to the students about what it is. Little information is better than no information at
Yes.
all. So,
And you see, you're perfectly correct in that. And what I would add is that to make that happen, you will need to have the awareness in terms of the educators. Because I'm sure, you know me in my science classes, my science class will touch on all these things.
yes.
It's how, as an educator, you can put. So when you do, what do they call it, home and family management?
Home and resource family management.
Home and resource management. In that setting, right, you can see how, as an educator, that educator can bring these discussions in there. Because in managing your home, right,
Oh, it's family and resource management.
family and resource
Right.
management.
Mommy, go get you. Yeah, mommy, she wants to say something.
Family and resource management. Now, that's in that area, and part of that is, okay, how you as an individual manage your household. In managing your household, you have to look about what money comes in. What money comes in comes from the job. And the job, if it's council, right? And you can start that discussion in terms of how council functions, so that if it functions properly, there'll be more jobs available at a higher rate, so that more money can come into your household, so you can manage in your, so you can. So the point I make is that you can be very creative in terms of sticking those things into the present curriculum that we do have. When you are responsible for the area of social studies, for example, how many of our educators actually specifically cut out a section of their delivery to deal with Barbuda Council or cabinet or elections and how things happen and the situation in terms of governance? It's up to, I think the curriculum is sufficiently wide, but then we have to really build the awareness and start the process in terms of our educators to see the need and to find ways in which to put it in there. You know how lovely it would be for the primary school students one day to come up to Barbuda Council and to have them members, okay, explain and to have a look at what council is all about and so. Same thing for cabinet, same thing for ministry, same thing, okay?
Right.
Part of the education.
It definitely is. So since we spoke about that, let's talk about the achievements now. We didn't go far off.
Oh, yes.
We didn't go far off. So let's talk about some of the achievements and milestones that the Barbuda Council has achieved so far.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, we have elections every 2 years, and in those elections, we are essentially placed in those positions by Barbudans. Now, in going out during the election season, in terms of engaging with the Barbudans who are going to put us there, obviously demands and needs and so on. That process of campaigning and so on is a two-way street. You put forward what programs you intend, and you also listen to hear what expectations are. So I can say, for example, as part of the process going for the last several election cycles, one of the very important things that come out from the Barbudan electorate is the whole question as to our particular situation here and the advantages that we enjoy with respect to controlling our resources in a manner where any young person at the age of 18 they are the richest persons in the world in that they can command resources to the tune of several $100,000. You know why? Because of the land system that we have. So one of our achievements as Barbuda Council, based on our mandate, is to ensure the continuation of local government, the Barbuda Council. And under the management of the Barbuda Council in terms of giving us the power and the advantages of administering our own island. That's what local government is all about.
Right.
It empowers you as a citizen. Which other country in this region or the world where its citizens have that unique opportunity there to have a say in terms of local government?
No.
Do you know that Antigua, for quite a while now, they have been talking about getting village councils, which is a form of local government in place, but have never been able to achieve that. But we enjoy that. And so part of our biggest achievement over several cycles is to maintain Barbuda Council as local government, the system of local government, and under that system of local government, the opportunity to manage our resources in a particular direct way that benefits us in a particular way. That's one big achievement we have achieved.
That's nice.
Another achievement is, over the years, the Barbuda Council has been always challenged with respect to finances. And you know, without finances, you cannot achieve anything.
Sure.
We've had our budgets cut arbitrarily over the years. And one of the things that we have done, especially over the last cycle, last fiscal year, is that finally we've been able to sit down and plan and to work on capital projects ourselves to achieve certain things. So, for example, the road program that we have run for several months now, rather than waiting on central government or anybody else to come in, or some contractor from elsewhere to come build roads for us, we now have the capacity to do it ourselves. So we have found the finances, we have found the expertise, we have found whatever, all that's necessary to bring us up to a level where we can build our own roads. And we plan to do that in other areas of our administration, our responsibilities, agriculture, fisheries, our social areas, sports. Just the other day we had a big consultation, village meeting in terms of youth and sports, and to get a program planned in terms of how we go on. So those sorts of activities, I think we are now well on our way to achieving things for ourselves, empowering ourselves. Okay?
Well, that's good. Those are some heartfelt achievements because, like you said, let's just rewind just a little bit. You said Antigua wanted to implement village councils. So, and that could eventually ease the burden of all the administrations and all the ministers for each constituency, because it would really be a big help, and you can direct and say, okay, this village needs X, Y, and Z, let's get it there. This village needs A, B, C, let's get it there. And we have that privilege here that a lot of people take for granted.
And let me just touch on one thing. If you had such a system operating in Antigua, for example, you have a village, you realize that every year at budget time, the budget will be sourcing the funds for that village, hands it over to the village council to now manage those funds, so they'll have to come up with a plan and come up with their own mechanisms, so you wouldn't have to wait on Ministry of so to get things done in your community. Some countries operate on that level, and it's a far more efficient. Jamaica, for example, has a village council system that's in place, may not be functioning as things so, but it is in place, and that's one of the ways they are able to decentralize. And when you decentralize, you increase efficiency, okay? And more so, persons on the ground right there have a say in managing the resource, because who know more about what your particular community needs
than the people
who live there, right? So it's a win-win.
Yep, it definitely is a win-win. And we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back in a second. Mr. Musitan, I know that's a mouthful, but we're going to take a quick break, okay? All right, stay with us here on Abundant Life Radio, Barbuda channel, on Facebook, YouTube, and CTV6.
Antigua Barbuda, I Miss the Live is here. You know me from parties, the vibes, the entertainment scene. And right now, our little paradise is making waves. We've got celebrities flying in, big shows happening, and the spotlight shining bright on us. How the sun hot. But here ya, when the world comes to our shows, what do you want them to see? Do you want them just to see nightlife, the music, and just the energy? Or do you also want them to see the clean beaches, fresh streets, the beauty of our nature and our people? Entertainment is more than just the stage. It's the stage our island sets for the world. And every single one of us plays a part in that. So this October, I am linking up with the national campaign team. We want to take our country. We're not just showing pride. We're protecting our reputation, our future, and our brand. You see that flag? Antigua and Barbuda, we've got it all. Let's show it off the right way. Love where you live. Love where you live.
This program here on the Barbuda channel, those of you who are joining on Abundant Life Radio, YouTube, Facebook, and CTV6, thank you so much for joining us here at the Barbuda channel. My name is Star George, and we are currently here with the chairman of the Barbuda Council, Mr. John Mussington. Mr. Mussington, we're back.
Thank you.
All right, so we basically touched on a lot today, and do you have anything that you want to say to the community right now about the setup of council and how they can be well-versed education? Just a summary of what we spoke about
Yeah,
today.
just to summarize, every year in January, we basically reconstitute council. In other words, we start our new fiscal year and essentially decide on which persons will lead the various subcommittees. In that process, I've explained, the Member of Parliament presides, and what persons need to understand more than anything else, it's a refresh. It doesn't necessarily have to be a total reshuffle of what's happening and so on. Because take, for example, this particular fiscal year, it started in April. The typical fiscal year in a non-election year for council starts in January. Once you have a council election, as we did last year, then that program will start in April. Now, it means that those persons who have taken responsibility of the various subcommittees, they only have, 9 months, 10 months? And 10 months sometimes is not sufficient to actually carry out your program.
Right.
So persons need to understand that in the reconstitution, you will get, because the members sit and make that decision in terms of electing persons and so on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a toss-up and switch-up and so on. That's what it is. The other thing that I hope persons get a real handle on is the responsibility of electors, voters, to put it in the raw way. It's the responsibility of voters to take an interest in how your country is being run. As elected members, we serve the electorate because our job is to listen to you, figure out what needs to be done, and sit down as members to chart the course. In other words, as administrators, plan how this business should go forward on behalf of everybody to maximally benefit everybody across the board, whether you vote for me personally or not. Okay? So we don't serve just our persons who vote for us, we serve all of Barbuda, because the role of Barbuda Council is to administer the island of Barbuda in these specific areas. So when we sit down and speak about health, it's health for everybody. Agriculture for everybody. Okay?
Yep. That is a wonderfully done summary, Mr. Mussington. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Barbuda channel, like you always do. You come well informed, and you always inform me, whether I'm here in studio or wherever I am in the world. I want to say thank you so much. And
just one plug before it goes well.
Okay.
I want to take this opportunity to invite members of the public. When the date is announced in terms of our setup, you will hear what that date is, to come out and be a part. I think the Barbuda channel will carry the process as they always do every year.
Yes, we will.
I also want to inform the general public that we are planning a village meeting for the 15th of January, which is next week, Thursday, I think.
Yes, next week's Thursday.
Next week, Thursday. And I think your station have been carrying that advertisement.
Yes, it's the Barbuda Legal Awareness Initiative.
Right. So I would want to encourage persons to come out and participate. It will be carried live, and that's a very important part of our governance, and it will bring you up to date in terms of things that are happening from Barbuda Council with respect to managing what we're doing here.
Yes.
Okay. And if I may, we also plan to have a village meeting on a party level on Sunday. So all members of the BPM party, you're invited to a meeting at Holy Trinity starting at 5. Okay?
All right. Well,
thank you for
so
that
much.
opportunity.
You're welcome. And also for the Barbuda Legal Awareness Initiative, the time, if you are here in Barbuda, if you can't make it out, we will carry it live at 4:15 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. That is the time in the Caribbean. In Eastern Time, it will be at 5:15 and 8:15 in the UK.
Yes.
I'm correct. Yes, so in the UK, it will be at 8:15 p.m. Whether you're in the US or Canada, it will be at 5:15 p.m. Or if you're generally in the Caribbean, it will be at 4:15 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. You will not want to miss it, and we will be carrying it live here at the Barbuda channel. So, Mr. Mussington.
And the local venue.
Yes.
Community
yes,
Center.
and the local venue. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It will be at the community center. So, if you don't know where that is, when you're going all the way down on the main road to River Dock, there is the nurses' hostel on your right. And it's the big white building, big pretty white building.
Can't miss it.
You cannot miss it, the Barbuda Community Center. So, Mr. Mussington, thank you so much. And until we come your way again, my name is Star George. Have a wonderful night.